you got to get debt in order to get ahead. Real life is not a math problem, but now you are a slave to the lender. So a lot of people see debt in one of two lights. They either see it as a tool or they see it as something to avoid at all costs. And as I had mentioned in the previous video that I had recorded, we have been following through sort of the baby steps of Dave Ramsey's plan. And Dave Ramsey is anti-debt. And now my wife and I, we are pushing to become debt-free. We're not necessarily fully anti-debt, but we are pretty close to it. Just maybe not as religious about it as Dave Ramsey is. So debt is a tool, and I agree with that. Debt can be used to obtain assets faster. It can get you where you want to go faster. My wife and I wouldn't be in this house right now if we did not take on some debt in order to get here. That is undeniable. We can't, deny that. The thing is, though, people will take that idea and say, well, you got to get debt in order to get ahead in anything. And if you want to obtain anything, you have to have debt. They take that idea and they run with it. And so they start getting debt in everything that they are spending on. And that is a dangerous place to be. And we'll talk more about that in a second. But I also want to talk about some more positives about debt before, I move on to some of the more negative aspects of it. So debt can also be used as leverage. Now, of course, this is something that more wealthy people do. People like me and the regular person aren't necessarily going to be leveraging debt. But I do want to acknowledge that it is there, that you can take a debt and you can leverage that debt to make more money into the future. I mean, some basic examples would be investing into a business. You take out a loan to create a small business with the intention that that business is going to eventually generate more money than what you borrowed in the first place. So it can be a stepping stone or a ladder to get you where you want to go faster. And so that's great. That's great that debt can do that. But there is a dark side to it as well. And like I said, there's some of the risks, like the leverage thing. It sounds great. And there's some YouTubers out there that are amazing about that. And they sound so smart. And they talk about arbitrage. And they talk about how, the percentage differences and investing and all this stuff. And they sound so incredibly smart. But they fail to realize that real life is not a math problem. It's not a math problem you're trying to solve. Real life is messy, unpredictable, and can really mess up your greatest plans. And that's what I get to into this next part. So debt, if you take on too much, but you think in the current moment that you're able to handle it, it can affect your cash flow. So as you are trying to, pay off your bills and things throughout the month, if you've got certain due dates happening, it can mess up your cash flow. And all of a sudden you have to pay the card loan, but now you don't have enough money for groceries or gas or something else like that. Debt, when you take on too much, can interrupt that. And we have to be careful. We can't allow our debts to cause cash flow problems from month to month, from one paycheck to the next paycheck, because that's how you get caught into the paycheck to paycheck lifestyle, because you're robbing Peter to pay Paul and all these things, just trying to stay afloat. And that's what happens when you take on too many debts, even though it sounds like you can pay the monthly payment. I mentioned that debt can help you attain things faster. There's another side to it where debt can actually bind you up as well. Where, sure, you've attained all these things that you want, but now you are slave to the lender. You are slave to those debt payments that you must make every single month. and now you have no money left at the end of the month because you've paid over and over into all of these bills. And because you thought, oh, I can make the payments, I can make all these different payments, then all of a sudden, individually, sure, you could have made all the payments, but when you collectively put them together, all of a sudden now you realize, I can't make these payments. Now I'm deciding whether or not I can eat. Now I'm deciding whether or not I can pay enough for gas to get from place to place, or if I can even enjoy other entertainments and things because I've got so much debt now. We have to be careful of that because debt can bind us up. So even if you're not necessarily against debt, you got to be careful. Do not allow it to become a weight that slows you down instead of speeding you up. Think about it. If you have so much debt that you can't save for retirement, that's a problem. Debt has now slowed you down. If you have so much debt that you can't enjoy other things in life, then that's a problem. Debt is slowing you down. So it's that delicate balance there, if you are going to take on debt, that you need to really avoid it. But like I've said, my wife and I, we're planning on becoming debt-free, so we don't have to worry about this at all. This will not be a concern. Getting to my last point about debt, and that is that it can cause you to spend more than you would have wanted to spend. Now, this isn't just with credit cards, although there are studies out there that show that when you buy with a credit card, you actually spend more money than you would have paid because your brain is saying, oh, this is going to be later on. I don't have to worry about it now. I'm not really spending money at this moment. It'll be spent later. And so because it's tomorrow's problem or future me's problem, we tend to spend a little bit more in stores compared to people who are just using a debit card in store. But it's not just the credit cards that you're spending more money. When you go and take out a loan for a car and you ask somebody, hey, how much money did you spend on that car? Oh, I took out a loan for $20,000 for that car. Okay, so you paid the sticker price of $20,000 on the car, but there's the interest that's being added on. If you are duped into the insurance things, the gap insurance, all that kind of stuff that they have going on in these dealerships and things, you end up paying more like $25,000 to $28,000 for that car by the time you're done with all the payments. Now, would you have gone onto that dealership's lot and paid $28,000 for that car? Probably not. But because the sticker said 20 and you were happy with that and you paid that price, you're thinking you only spent $20,000. The reality is you didn't. You're paying more. So if you have the opportunity to buy a car debt-free, or buy things with cash, it's better to do it that way than to take out a loan. Because no matter what the interest is, if it's 3%, 5%, or whatever, no matter what the interest is, you're paying more than what you agreed to pay. At the end of the day, you are paying more than what you agreed to pay. My wife and I, we spent $110,000 on this house. We're not paying $110,000 for this house. The interest probably makes this house more like $150,000 to $180,000. I'd have to go back and look at the numbers. I know the bank had shared a bunch of paperwork and it mentioned that, how much we would have paid in interest after the full, realization of the loan. But I can't remember that off the top of my head right now. But anyway, it's going to be a much higher number. But anyway, the point is that I feel like there's a lot of things that people wouldn't buy if they truly knew how much they were going to spend on that item, instead of just looking at the sticker that is on the item. Okay, so as you can see, debt, not really a fan of it. And I had mentioned, I think in the previous video, that I don't plan on getting any more car loan payments and things like that. So we're trying to pay off that student loan debt that I had mentioned previously and try to avoid ever going back into debt from that point forward. So